Counsel, we are on the record outside of the presence of the jury. The people have rested. Mr. Hassel.
Your Honor, at this time, well, obviously,
Everyone be seated. And we'll just take a minute. People file in.
Judge, I've had a number of opportunities, in fact, to speak with Ms. Hassel regarding her decision to testify. I'm sure the court will voir dire her, but she understands that she has a right to testify in her own defense. Obviously, it is her decision alone as to whether or not she would testify or not. She also understands that she has the right to remain silent, and the court will instruct the jury that they are not to use her silence against her. And with that understanding, Ms. Hassel, is it your decision today to testify, or do you wish to remain silent?
I wish to remain silent.
Okay. And basically, you can have a seat, ma'am. That's just what I was going to go over with you. You've had plenty of time to talk to your attorney about this?
Yes, Your Honor.
Probably on definitely more than one occasion, right?
Yes.
You've been present through the whole trial, right?
Yes.
Understand that if you wish to do so, you can take the oath like you see the other witnesses do, sit up here and testify.
Right.
Okay? You also understand you have a right to remain silent, and if you choose to remain silent, your silence will not be used against you. You understand that?
I understand.
Do you have any questions about that?
Your Honor.
Do you need any more time to talk to your attorney about that?
Your Honor.
Okay. And with that, you've indicated you are choosing to remain silent,
Yes, Your Honor.
and you are choosing not to testify.
Correct.
All right. If satisfied then with that, we'll bring the jury in, and you can indicate that you have no evidence, and counsel, we will, as discussed earlier, go directly into closing arguments, all right?
Of course, Your Honor. Yes, sir.
All right.
All rise, please.
Please be seated.
And the record will reflect the jury is back, appropriately seated in the jury box. Ladies and gentlemen, as indicated before you went in for your break, the people have rested. And Mr. Hassel.
Judge, at this time, the defense would rest, and we're prepared for closing argument.
Okay, thank you. Then with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly into closing arguments. First, we will hear from the people and Mr. Crangelo.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Tyrone Hassel II got up there and testified a couple days ago. And he testified he's having a hard time with dates now, hard time with years. That he's stuck in 2018. Can't quite bring himself to 2019. Sergeant Tyrone Hassel III couldn't make 2019 either. He didn't get to see the ball drop, and he didn't get to celebrate with his family. And you all know why. You all know how Sergeant Hassel was murdered on December 31st of 2018. You all know who was involved with the planning of this murder. And you all know how it was carried out. And now you know that Sergeant Hassel would have made 2019. He could be here today if it wasn't for this defendant. He's stuck in 2018. The defendant and Jeremy Cuellar planned out together to murder Sergeant Hassel, and the evidence is so crystal clear on that. In her own words, over and over again. Her lover. They wanted to be together. They wanted to spend their life together and raise Tyrone Hassel IV as their own. With a head start of about $500,000. And the defendant's plan, and it was her plan and Cuellar's plan. Not his plan, but their mutual plan. Their agreed upon plan, as Jaquan Hamilton said. And they would have gotten away with it if not for Jaquan Hamilton. Hamilton He's a very conflicted person, as you could tell when he found out about this. And he said, I went to the chaplain after Jeremy Cuellar approached me and told me what he did. And he said it still took me a couple days because he was friends with them. It wasn't easy. Same squad, same company. You heard Sergeant Burks talk about what that's like. The amount of time you spend together. Brothers in arms. But he came forward and he testified to, regardless of friendship, almost a loyalty above all, except honor. There's no honor in what this defendant did. And Sergeant Hamilton said it was the right thing to come forward, so he did. If it hadn't been for Sergeant Hamilton, Jeremy Cuellar and this defendant would be in Georgia right now with Tyrone IV, and $500,000. So let's start out with this plan. Sergeant Tyrone Hassel IV loved his wife, not the person sitting here, his wife. Sergeant Burks talked about that. That was my queen. Even the defendant's statement said, he was a good husband. He's better than Jeremy Cuellar. He's a pretty good guy. He would have protected him. He would have protected his queen. A giving man whose last act was to give, whose life was dedicated to giving, to his family, his friends, and his country. That giving was taken away by her because she wanted to be with Jeremy Cuellar. She thought it would be a better life. Was there a plan? You absolutely know there was a plan. She admitted it. Did you plan with Jeremy to kill Tyrone? Yes, in her own initials. And the defendant's confession alone is enough to convict her. Everything you heard during that interview, this was no false confession. This was no forced confession. She wanted to talk to Detective Longuski. That is the testimony. She voluntarily went up. She wanted to talk, as Officer Pepper said, I want to clear my name. Well, she wasn't able to do that. She couldn't clear her name. And she realized that. And if this was a false confession, it is simply amazing how much all the aspects of her confession and the details that she gave, details that these officers did not know beforehand, matched up with everything else and all the other evidence. Details that are corroborated by others. This was a plan that she made. And like her mom said in that phone call, an evil, demonic, calculated, that's her mom's word, calculated plan. Her response, we planned it and I wasn't thinking it all through.
And you were talking about doing it in Korea.
Yeah.
So what happened? Why did you do it in Korea?
No, it was just planned in Korea. It wasn't to be done in Korea. It was just planned in Korea when we got back to the States.
Okay.
Plan in Korea, let's start with that plan. Let's talk about Jaquan Hamilton. Now, she said in her confession it started in Korea. What did Jaquan Hamilton tell you? This plan started in Korea. He said in the summertime of 2018, he was approached by Jeremy Cuellar. Cuellar had just come from this defendant's room and said, buddy's got to go, got to get rid of him. You all know what that means, especially since they carried out this plan. And Jaquan Hamilton followed up and said, well, come on, is she involved in this plan? Is that what she wants? Yes. Plan's mutual. She wanted it too. Cuellar told Hamilton that. Hamilton wanted to make sure. Are you sure? Yes. Mutual. There's an agreement to do this. And if you think about it and how the facts fit together, in her confession she said, yeah, you know what? In June of that year, I'd been getting friendly with Jeremy and working with him. She said to Detective Longuski, in June of that year we had an argument. And that's when I went to Cuellar, and that's when the plan started. Jaquan Hamilton testified. In summer of that year, he came to me and said that's when the plan started. It all fits together. Jaquan Hamilton has absolutely no reason to lie. None of these witnesses have any reason to lie. The only evidence you had of a person lying throughout this whole entire case is that defendant, and she admitted it. And she lied to help herself out. But all that matches up with what Hamilton testified to about this plan starting in the summer of 2018, directly after Jeremy Cuellar and Kemia Hassel, the defendant here, met and started it. That matches exactly up with what Detective Lunguski was told. That's that corroborating evidence that Detective Lunguski talks about, that corroborating evidence that shows she was being accurate and had details and was being truthful when she finally confessed to this crime. What else shows that this was planned out ahead of time? Her own statements to her mother.
Why did all this come together? It was planned in Korea.
And she said multiple times that phone calls you just heard, we planned it. It was planned in Korea. To Lunguski, we planned it. Definition of we is more than one. We. We planned it in Korea. Surely, she was not giving a false confession to her mother when she said, we planned it. Other statements she gave to her mother when her mother asked, did he just come up here and do it? Did he just come up here and kill Ty, or did you tell him to do it? And she responded, did I tell him to do it? Mother responded back, I'm asking you. Her very next line is, we planned it. Her mom asked her also, is somebody forcing you to say this? Is someone coercing you? Was actually, her word was coerce, I believe. Coercing you to say this? This is like a dream. No, they're not. And then her mom says, I can't hear you. She says, no, they're not. She admitted no one was coercing her. She gave Detective Lunguski a 10 in how he treated her, professionally. She was comfortable the whole time, the testimony was. She was offered breaks, offered food, offered water, voluntary. You can leave at any time, was told to her. Or I'm sorry, you could end this interview at any time. That was told to her. Always appeared comfortable. All of this other information is corroborating evidence that fits and links in with that confession. How did this start? The affair, not getting what wanted, the fight in June. Burks, Bacon called the mother in Hamilton. Let's start with the affair. She denied it over and over. And then finally, after she knew what she was up against, yeah, we had an affair and it started in Korea. She didn't want to admit it, but had to. Burks knew it. Sergeant Burks, close friend, Sergeant Tyrone Hassel. Bacon knew it. Bacon was also very tight with Cuellar and Kemia Hassel, the defendant. He said, yeah, they were having an affair. And Hamilton knew it too. And in a call to the mother, she admitted that she was having an affair. So it started with that affair. She didn't feel she was getting what she wanted, and then that fight took place, and it all spiraled down from there. And she gave you the reasons for it. She gave you money as a reason. They wanted to be together as a reason. And then the sister as a reason why they had to get it done right when they did, along with other reasons why they tried to do it on block leave.
Is the money part of it?
The money is part of it, yes.
Okay.
So she admits that the money is part of it. How else do we know the money is part of it? Hamilton Hamilton mentioned that money, Cuellar talked about the money. Cuellar said, yeah, the money's a bonus when we pull this off. Again, buttressing what Lunguski found out from the defendant. Immediately, in the bank records, shouldn't say immediately, a deposit of $100,000 from Fort Knox, the initial death benefit, with another $400,000 to come. $100,000. And also in her bank records, money. Interestingly enough, a transfer to Jeremy Jordan on the same day that she received that $100,000. It was a small transfer, $50. Why transfer money over to Jeremy Jordan? Who we know that's Jeremy Jordan Cuellar. That's an interesting little twist there. You know all along that she knew about this. The question is, was she involved? And you know that she was involved from all the evidence. She may try to claim that she only knew about it and did not assist, did not encourage, or give any aid or counsel in this case. But you know the evidence shows otherwise. But if you knew all along, as soon as your husband's murdered, you knew it was Jeremy Cuellar, you never say anything? You're sending him money? The only reason you're not saying anything is you were involved and you want to get away with it. That's the only reason. The call to her mother that she made.
The money, part of the reason why y'all plan to do it, and I told them yes, because they said, we know that you have a child, we know that you don't want to come in anymore, you know that you're going to need money for your son. You know what they're going to take for your child, so you told them that the money was a part of it? It was a part of it. It was a part of it? Yeah, it was a part of it. Because when we were talking about it, he was like, and you know we got the life insurance, so you don't have to worry about it.
And the call to her mother, the money was a part of it. And then lastly, in her statement to Lunguski, that yes, she put her needs and her wants, and we talked about how many times in that interview did she say, I was unhappy, I want, unhappy. How many times?
But you put your needs and your wants above somebody's life.
I did.
$400,000 is not worth high, is it? You thought it was before. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Yeah.
Was the money part of the reason for the murder? Yes. Looking at other reasons for the murder, they wanted to be together. They had in their idea that they were going to raise Chunk. Jeremy was going to raise Chunk as his own. That was all part of the plan. Not only did this plan start in Korea, carried out in Berrien County, Michigan, they had planned for afterwards what they were going to do. They were going to stay together, move in together, and Jeremy Cuellar was going to raise Tyrone Hassel IV as his own son after he murdered Tyrone Hassel IV's father.
Was he going to say, once he got out of Georgia, you guys going to hook back up? What's the plan?
Yeah, so the plan was, I get back to Georgia, and then he moves in and we go from there, just being together.
Okay.
Now, the reason why they had to get it done so fast, over and over you heard about the sister. Tyrone III, a few years ago took his brother down to Colorado to give him a better life. And was intending on taking his sister to Georgia to give her a better life. The defendant didn't like that. I can understand a little bit not wanting a lot of in-laws in your house. I get that. What I don't get is the steps she took in not wanting to be with Sergeant Hassel. That was just part of her being unhappy again. Listen to how many times she says unhappy.
Right. And you didn't want to wait until after the second.
Yeah, because after the second, I knew it would happen. I knew that Kemia was going to be living with us, which pistol should not just move that up. She's going to be more unhappy.
Right.
And that's how I felt. I was unhappy.
So happy.
Yeah, because I was telling him, like, I don't want her to come stay with us. And he's like, well, I want to get her out of the city. She's going to come with us. But I didn't.
I want to get her out of the city so she can come live with us. But she was unhappy, unhappy, unhappy. So where does that corroborate another evidence? Tyrone Hassel II corroborated that when he testified. He testified about a few years ago when his older son Tyreek went down to live with them. And he testified here about his younger sister just graduating and going down to live with them. That was such a big motivation for this defendant to make sure it got done by January 2nd on block leave. And speaking of block leave, let's think about another thing real quick. An interesting bit that Tyrone II testified to. He testified that Sergeant Hassel was going to go back on the 26th, right after Christmas. And you remember what he said after that? The defendant actually wanted to stay longer. The defendant wanted to stay longer. Why is that? Because by the 26th, just after Christmas, Jeremy Cuellar wasn't able to make it into Berrien County to fulfill their plan. That was a testimony. She wanted to stay longer. She was still trying to set this murder up. There was a lot of planning involved here. It was planned out, they worked together, and they tried multiple times to commit this murder. Snapchat, the deleted account. Ask yourself, why all of a sudden is she deleting her Snapchat account? Is this a coincidence? Absolutely not. She tried to delete her account. You saw the searches. You see the search for active duty soldier killed on New Year's Eve, and then this next search, how to delete Snapchat. And then the actual delete my account for Snapchat support. An interesting search you also find on January 3rd at 1:53 in the morning Eastern Time. What do I do after my house is paid off? Clearly she knew she was coming into a substantial sum of money. Yeah, that's not a surprise. She knew she had life insurance. Your husband was just killed a couple days ago, 3 days ago, and you're already searching at 1 in the morning, 1:53 in the morning. What do I do after I paid off my house? Seems to me that wouldn't be the first thing you're really thinking of. Or deleting my Snapchat account wouldn't be the first thing you're really thinking of. Then you go to Snapchat support and it will tell you, 30 days, everything is permanently deleted. All of your stuff from their database is gone. And Detective Peake testified about that, his expertise with social media and social media applications. He said that's true. You can't get anything after that. She deleted it. And the record that came back from Snapchat that was introduced, People's 122, I believe it was, dated February 20th, from Snapchat. We're unable to locate any records pertaining to Kemia Hassel and the information that you gave, because it had been deleted and the 30 days had passed. That's why we couldn't find anything for her, because she deleted it. Why? You all know why she deleted her Snapchat account. They were careful to try and not to get caught. And the testimony was also that she had a Snapchat account. She definitely had one. Bacon said, yeah, I know she Snapchatted. I would Snapchat back and forth with her. I had her in my friends' contacts. We were friends on Snapchat. Hamilton said, yes, she had a Snapchat. I saw her Snapchat. I did not Snapchat with her, but I've seen her Snapchat. So we know for a fact that she had an account, and we know for a fact she deleted it. Nobody else had her phone to delete her account on her behalf. That is just a silly argument. She is the one that deleted her Snapchat account. And also, when you did the extraction, and this extraction was done on 1/1/2019, before she deleted her account, the extraction from the victim's phone. The extraction on her phone took place later, afterwards. The victim's phone was prior. Her Snapchat is on there, in his contacts. And his phone was also put in airplane mode. unds.ke. That's her Snapchat account name. And where do you see that? You see it all over Jeremy Cuellar's records. unds.ke. All throughout the time frames. Whole rows of them here. Him to her. Her back to him. Over and over and over again. Clearly, this isn't just two co-workers who work together. These are two lovers involved in a plan to commit a crime. She testified, she gave a confession to Linguski about using Snapchat. These records, as the detective testified, aren't going to show the contents of the Snapchat communications. And he also testified that you can use Snapchat to make phone calls back and forth through that application. And that's not going to show up on the AT&T logs because you're not using the AT&T network, you're using the data. So it won't show up on there. But he also said it's not going to show up on those logs either because those are for the snaps. Those records that Snapchat gives are for snaps, text, videos, and pictures. The phone calls don't come in on records. So defense counsel's right that we don't know exactly what was in those messages. Well, that's because she deleted her account. That's why we don't know. Or do we know? You guys do know what was in those Snapchat communications and what was going on with those Snapchat calls. Because she told you what was in there.
These Snapchat messages, now I know you're in a different place than you are right now, okay? Are they going to make you look like you're pushing this? Because you're calling them back?
Yeah. It's gonna make me look like I pushed it.
Okay. All right.
From me calling him back, it's gonna make me.
It's going to make me look like I was pushing it from me calling him back. So we know exactly what was going on with Snapchat. So the biggest question is why she felt the need to delete her account. And they did all this preparation to try and get away with this crime. And they thought they would get away with this crime.
But did y'all think y'all could get away with it? You thought that was correct. How?
We thought we would. We. She uses that word again, we. Who's we? Her and Jeremy. Not he, not I, but we. She also talked about multiple trips coming in and out of Berrien County. So what did she say? Did you try for 4 days to work together to kill Tyrone? Yes. And then she wrote in on her own. Other people were with him, so we didn't do it on those days. Again, there's nothing false about that, because that was corroborated by a substantial amount of other evidence.
He was up here for like 3 days. So where did he stand while he's up here?
He went back and forth.
To where?
To back and forth to Chicago.
He drove back and forth every day.
Every day he drove.
He came back and forth every day. That's a correction that she corrected Linguski on. Because Linguski thought he was staying up here the whole time, but she corrected him. And that's one of those things that corroborate and add validity to her confession that shows this was no false confession. Now, you also heard from Heather Wyatt. And she is the expert who went through all the phone records of Jeremy Cuellar, location points, and how it connected to the cell data E-nodes, she called them. And remember her testimony, there were multiple trips, 4 trips back and forth. The physical evidence of her cell, 4 trips back and forth, match up exactly with what she said to Lunguski. If she's making a false confession, she's really good at guessing. Like, really, really good at guessing. If she's making a false confession, yes, he came into town and shot him and went back home. How would she know he came 4 separate times to commit the crime unless she is involved with it? And she indicated on the one exhibit, there was a receipt found in his car from Walmart. Walmart at 4650 West North Avenue in Chicago. He paid cash for a Garmin Drive. $200. That was at 9:33 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm sorry, Central Time, so 10:33 p.m. on 12/28. And you remember Heather Wyatt's testimony. Shortly after he bought this, while he bought this, his phone records, his cell is pinging right next to this Walmart. Corroborates everything about Heather Wyatt's testimony. In fact, if we find a Walmart receipt and his phone is right next to that Walmart, it lends validity and credibility to everything she testified about, that her records are spot on accurate. He says at 10:44 Eastern Time, he goes off the network. Well, that's kind of strange, honestly. Who with their phone these days goes off the network, unless you're flying on an airplane? And so what are some possible reasons why they might go off the network or not be connecting to the network? Put it into a bag, tin foil, whatever it may be. And one reason could be they simply turned the phone off. He turned that phone off. How do we know? He wasn't connecting to the network anymore. He bought a GPS to drive, so he knew where he was going. He did not need his phone to give him directions on how to get to 2086 Colfax, which him and Ty, they weren't friends. They weren't hanging out with each other. They weren't good buddies, pen pals, anything like that. How would he know where he lives without the help of this defendant? How would Jeremy Cuellar know where Ty lives without the help of this defendant, or where he was going? So he disconnects, but immediately the next time he connects is 3 hours later in the Berrien County, Benton Harbor area, with the closest E-nodes to 2086. Why did he turn it off to drive up there and turn it back on as soon as he got to Berrien County? The reason he did that is because he had to contact this defendant. Otherwise, if he was acting on his own and alone, why wouldn't he just leave it off? That's what he would have done. He didn't. He turned it back on because he needed to get the updates, the play-by-play from this defendant, like she said she was giving. There was more planning involved. Again, the updates. She talked constantly about them.
They're from Chicago.
So he come up every night and kind of watch the place. Was he going to try? I mean, like, if
He was trying it before. He wasn't like scoping out to see when he should do it. He was trying before.
okay, but he wasn't given the opportunity.
Yeah.
So he was talking because they're going to get real correspondent every day, and we let him,
We were talking.
and it just wasn't working out. But
Yeah, he would be like, what's today looking like? And I'd be like, well, he's out cutting hair. And he's like, okay, well, we'll be up there in a few hours. And then he'll come up here and scope out and see if he'll come home by himself or if he wouldn't. And then he would try to take the opportunity.
He would call me and say, "What's today look like?" And that's corroborated exactly by Heather Wyatt's testimony. That's that corroborating evidence that Lunguski talks about. What's today look like? They're not talking about the weather here. What's today look like? Is today a good day? Is today the opportunity to get this done? And he said, we are coming up here. Interesting. He's coming with other people. Those are details that they didn't have any idea previously. We are coming up here to take care of this. Who's we? She gives out the name Hector Rodriguez. It is confirmed. that he is friends with a person in Chicago with Hector Rodriguez. And she continues to let him know where the victim is going and what he is doing.
Okay. So he was trying before they, so people, neighbors saw the car sitting there. Yeah, so they weren't, he wasn't really watching for it, trying to plan it. He was actually trying those nights, but just couldn't make it happen because there was other people with Ty.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're trying to get him separate and stuff like that?
Not even just getting him separate, but yes, I was letting him know where he was going and him being back at the house. Like, he'll be on the way to the house, or he's already gone.
Okay.
I was letting him know where he's going. If that is not aiding and assisting and counseling and abetting in a crime, encouraging that crime, what possibly is? If that's not it, I don't know. Continually telling, where is he going? Setting him up to die. And correcting Lunguski along the way.
One of the things they're saying is how was this guy that was with him? Who was the guy that was with him when he was up here? He was up here for like 3 days. So where did he stand while he's up here?
He went back and forth.
To where?
To back and forth to Chicago.
He drove back and forth every day?
Every day he drove back and
Who
forth.
was the guy that was with him?
He, 2 different occasions, 2 different days he was with 2 different people. One person that he was with, his name Bishop, that's his nickname, but his real name is Hector Rodriguez. And the other person that he was with, his name is Jay, but I don't know his full name.
Was Hector with him the night that he was going to bail, the night that it happened? Because somebody got on nervous speed.
I think Bishop is the one who bailed, but we didn't talk about it after it happened. But Bishop was the one who was with him majority of the time.
Okay, Bishop is the one who was with the majority of the time. His name's Hector Rodriguez?
Yeah.
Okay, and how does he know him? From the service or what?
No, from Chicago.
Okay, so he's just one of his...
They were friends, they grew up together.
Okay, and who's the other guy that was with him?
Jay, I don't know his full name, but...
All corroborated by Officer Peppers, lending even more credibility to her confession. This is no false confession. I'm not even going to address that anymore. Because, ladies and gentlemen, a false confession is just grasping at straws here. Let's talk about Walmart. The night of the actual murder. She talks, and this is important too, because you'll see it through all the other corroborating evidence. When she's talking about Walmart, and the defendant said, no, he's around people, can't get done, I'm going to leave. It's not going to get done today. He says, no, you got to come back and do it.
I told him, I said, he's going to be coming back soon. He came back to the house, nothing happened.
You called him back to this, was that...
No, when he went to Walmart.
Oh, he went to Walmart, okay.
I said, he's going to be coming back. I said, he's going to be coming back soon.
We know for a fact he was at Walmart. He was at Walmart just around 8 o'clock. He was identified. Alicia Barney and his father. What else do you know that lends credibility? Well, Jeremy Cuellar's car was found. That's the plate picture taken by Detective Fleming from Liberty County Sheriff's Department. And that's Exhibit 28 on the left, and Exhibit 100 on the right is the plate reader. Same exact plate number. CJU 5018. 827. Westbound. I-94. Where's that plate reader at? It is just to the east of 139. Think about the timing of this. He's picked on that plate reader, and this is why the physical evidence further buttresses what her confession says. Officer Pepper says, if you're going to leave Walmart and head back to Chicago, like Jeremy Cuellar said he was, according to her own statement, I'm just going to go back, we'll do it another night. You're going to get on at exit 29, and you're going to head westbound to Chicago. And just to the east of exit 28, your license plate is going to get picked up on that plate reader. That is within a half hour after he couldn't do it when he saw the victim, Sergeant Hassel, at Walmart. So he left. He was going back home. And actually, if you look at Heather Wyatt's example, It'll show he's up in this area from 728 to 1136, hitting off of this this cell tower. That is right next to Walmart area. Down here at about 837, he gets picked up on this one. Down southwest of there, which is just after the plate reader picked him up at 827. So he's picked up down here. But what does she say? I called him back. So what happens then? He gets picked up back on these cell phone towers up here. That shows he was leaving, going back, and then was called back, so he came back. That exhibit and that testimony corroborates exactly what she said to Detective Linguski, that he was leaving, but I wanted to come back. She had to have it done that night, had to have it done by the 2nd, because knew that she wouldn't get it done after that.
You're telling them to hold on and come back, you're calling them back. You wanted it done that night rather than waiting for another day?
Yeah, pretty much, because we're supposed to be leaving on the 2nd.
You're supposed to leave on the 2nd.
We're supposed to be leaving, going back to Georgia on the 2nd.
So you know she had to get it done that night. Then comes the part, her final act to set him up to die. Come back. Because he's going to come bring me food.
And he was just like, never mind, we'll just try another day. And he was still in the area, and then I said, well, he's about to bring us something to eat. And then that's when he came back.
That's when he came back. That's when he knew he'd be able to get the victim by himself. They had a phone call at 10:19. 10:19 p.m. It was in her cell phone records. 10:19 p.m. was that phone call about the food. Hey, can you call me? I want to have some food. Nowhere is that in her call log. How did that get out of her call log? She deleted it. 10:48 p.m. He says, hey, I'm about to be on my way. Just before 11 o'clock, a little before 11, he said, I think Tyrone Hassel testified, the second testified, it was about 10:57 on his watch, but his watch is off a few minutes. He left the party, the gathering on Lincoln, drove home, takes about 6 minutes to get there. And a call goes out in their dispatch at 11:05 p.m. Within 10 minutes, that murder happens like that. You even saw it on some of the body cam video. He just left our house. He just left here. How could this happen? Someone knew he was coming. Someone was waiting for him. That's how it took place like that. You remember that iChat message in her phone. Because she called him back here. That is not a coincidence, ladies and gentlemen. That is her setting him up to die. Think about this. Him hiding out there. And she made a statement about it.
So when he told us about the food, he was saying he was going to get the food, and then, wondering where the food is, and I was going to say, never mind, don't bring the food. And then I just said, then I was like, okay, well, you're going to bring the food anyway, just bring it. And then he was out there, and he was watching the house the whole time.
He knew he was there.
He was there.
Where was he hiding? Where did you have him at?
He was somewhere by the house, but I don't know exactly because I never told him hi right here because I don't really know the area. He was out there days before, like figuring out where he was going to be.
Oh. And she knew it. She knew all of this plan because she helped to devise it. So where was he hiding? You remember the testimony? That shed on the right-hand side, Deputy Dyer did a dog track that night. Noticed some trampled down area, and he shouted, has anybody been back here? Because his dog hit on that area. And then That dog did the track up the street, right towards the driveway across from Walter Nost, where he said there was a black car. I'm sorry. He said there was a car parked there, and I remember the headlights, and he had that picture. He identified, yes, that looks like it. There was a picture of the defendant's car. So let's think about this for a minute, ladies and gentlemen. He's out there hiding and waiting, and this track picks up here. He's out there hiding, waiting. This is calculated. How did he know he was going to be there at that time? Why would he be waiting there at that time? You saw the weather. It wasn't great weather out there. No one's going to stand out there forever. Walter Nost testified, I saw a guy get out of the car, reach around into the back, what he presumed was the back door, reach in, pull something out, walk down Gerald Street and take a left. That is going right in the direction of the victim's house. So this isn't long before the murder, okay? This is shortly before the murder. Because he knew that Hassel was coming back. Because I tell you what, on New Year's Eve, you're not going to stand outside in bad weather by that shed and wait for somebody to come home. Because nobody's coming home on New Year's Eve at about 10:55. When you're out at a gathering, you're out at a party for New Year's Eve, you're at least staying until midnight. Doesn't that make sense? You're not coming home. But he knew that Sergeant Hassel was coming home. So that's why he was hiding in that area. That's all corroborated by the physical evidence. The fact that he was out there at just the right time, that she knew Sergeant Hassel was coming back, that corroborates everything in her confession, that she was setting him up to die. And she knew it. She knew that this was a 50-50 thing. This was a plan, a conspiracy with her and Jeremy Cuellar. And then, in her own selfishness, got upset when Jeremy gave information on her. She was upset by that because he wouldn't take care of her like she wanted. All the evidence points to a planned setup, a conspiracy, ladies and gentlemen, that started in Korea and ended on New Year's Eve of 2018. A 50-50 plan between this defendant and Jeremy Cuellar.
You know, this is a 50-50 thing. He talked about it to where police were able to call back up here, and he instantly said, this was me and her. It was never, well, I felt this type of way about him, so I scoped out and I did it. He wasn't thinking about taking care of me and my child like he told me that he would. He instantly just said, this is me and her, we planned this out together.
We planned this out together because that's what they did. Even her mom asked her, you had your husband killed. You had your husband killed. That child lost a father. That father over there lost a son. I wasn't thinking about all that.
I ain't disappointed in that other stuff. Because you're 22 years old. And these people come and say you was living a double life and you done had your husband killed, the father of your child, and you talking about I'll be disappointed. Now I'm disappointed in this. This is what I'm disappointed in. I'm disappointed that you got all us up here for 20 years up to us to sit, you know, getting up and you get over funeral and stuff and all that, and this boy right here. Then I'm disappointed that my grandbaby don't have his mama under his daddy. That's what I'm disappointed in. I'm disappointed because you know better. I just knew that the people was lying on me when Big Tyrone called me and said that. that was worth it. I mean, you could just say, I'm done.
I wasn't even thinking straight. Think about none of that.
She wasn't thinking about none of that, she said. No, she wasn't. Because all she was thinking about was herself. That's what she thinks about, herself.
Still, I mean, isn't that a huge step to kill her husband just to be with another guy?
It's a very huge.
It's a very huge step. She's admitting it. She's admitted it over and over. And no matter how hard the defendant may want to say it was false confession, it wasn't. It wasn't coerced. It was the truth when she said it.
If somebody coercing you to say this stuff, because this stuff is sound like a TV show, a dream.
No, they're not, Mommy.
I can't hear you.
No, they're not.
Someone coercing you. No, they are not. The judge is going to give the instructions in this case. And she's going to give you the elements. You can just go right down those instructions and check off each one. That she did when talking, she never pulled that trigger. But didn't she really? She caused Jeremy Hassel to do it. She planned with Jeremy Cuellar. She planned with Jeremy Cuellar to do it. And that's evident over and over and over again. Aiding and abetting. She is just as responsible as Jeremy Cuellar. She needs to be held accountable, same as Jeremy Cuellar, because she is just as responsible. She assisted in this crime. She gave aid. She gave counsel. She procured it. She abetted to encourage it. All the evidence shows that. And she conspired with him to do it. Go write down the checklist of those jury instructions. You can check off every single one beyond a reasonable doubt. Based on common sense. What does your common sense tell you here? Just check off those boxes, ladies and gentlemen, of all the elements. And the conspiracy, although it started in Korea, it finished in Berrien County. And the venue for conspiracy will be where the conspiracy started or any overt act in furtherance of this conspiracy. And that overt act took place in Berrien County when, with the help of this defendant, Jeremy Cuellar took Sergeant Hassel's life. You go down those jury instructions, and you'll come to the very same conclusion. Very straightforward, simple conclusion based on the evidence. Because it is that strong, ladies and gentlemen. Not only her confession, but her multiple statements to her mother and all the physical evidence from Heather Wyatt that backs it up. And the plate reader and Jaquan Hamilton's statements and Sergeant Burke's. It's all right there. You will come to the same conclusion that this defendant came to about her own guilt.
My son, I feel just as guilty as him.
Just as guilty as him. You'll come to that same conclusion as she did, in her own words. She is just as guilty as him. You know, earlier, the defense talked about a tragedy of convicting a person not responsible for that crime, that would be just as big a tragedy. That's not going to happen in this case, ladies and gentlemen. Holding her accountable for her actions, holding her accountable for the death of her husband, for the death of that man's son, holding her accountable is what's juster. It would be a tragedy if she wasn't held accountable. The true tragedy would be to deny the justice for Sergeant Hassel. Sergeant Hassel, we talked about it. Sergeant Burks, I think, summed it up as good as anybody. He made you a better person. Sergeant Hassel made you a better person. Because he gave to his family, his friends, his wife, his son, his country. He gave. Give him the justice he deserves. Give back to him. Just this one time. Give to him. Hold her accountable. Agree with her that she is just as guilty as Jeremy Coyle.